sa among huna-huna ini konsyal nga once nga madawat ka sa ato ang pampublikong tungaan dakbayan Sugbo, apil na magug ka niya na. Kay
So we're not
dili
question-
magin nato ikalimod karon konsyal sa kahagipot sa kalisod sa panahon.
Correct.
Ana sige mga tubig-tubigan, kadi na sa apiki, mapabilin sila pero ang katong uban nga apiki sad kayo, hagbong gid sila. Ari gid sila sa public. Ari gid sila palandong sa ato ang mga eskwelahan. So tingali o dili man sad nato madali-dali masensayo ng ato ang mga pampubliko gyud nga mga estudyante mukumbati magyud na sila.
Correct.
Mukumbati gyud na sila tuon aron makuha gyud ang ilang damgo. Halos tanang mga bata konsehal mo ilang damgo.
Sabot ko. Ako lang, residency ba sa usa ka valedictorian, salutatorian, inisod na siya sa mga eskwelahan, grade 4 na siya, grade 5, o siya magsugod sa grade 1. Niya, secondary, nisugod na siya, mga second year or third year. Di siya residente niya, kay transfer man siya. Niya, excel siya, then he can receive this cash incentive.
Tingali mo na usa sa buhatan o guidelines o kung sa ipaagi, pinaagi usab ni Council Alvin Dizon sa local school board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Salamat,
Member.
Consul.
Yes, Member Carillo, please.
Anang, di ba karon in effect naman ang K-12?
Yes, sir.
So ito pa ang graduation ani in the grade 12 na. So why graduation separately sa grade 6?
Ang naagi po ang grade 6, sir.
Naagya po.
Naagi po ang grade 6.
So
graduation sa grade
dili
6.
na ni siya elementary or secondary, pero grade 6 and grade 12.
Ang atua, sir, sa grade 6 na graduation, unya sa grade 10, completion ang atua.
Completion.
Completion.
So asa man ang graduation ani, sir? Grade 12 or sa pagkakaroon ba?
Sa pagkaroon,
gipatuman.
Grade 6.
Grade 6 o
Grade
niya sa grade 12 sad.
Sa grade 12, sir.
Sa grade 12.
Yes, sir.
Ato pa kaduha sila mo graduate sa
Kaduha.
grade 6. Unsa may tawagan nimo graduate sa grade 6? Elementary gyapon or unsa man sa bag-o karon?
Mao gyapon, sir. Di na mausab. Di na mausab, sir, no? Di na mausab, sir. Elementary is elementary. Mag-graduate sila.
Ano na may Roy, senior high, junior high.
Additional na sa high school, sir.
O
Muna
niya,
na siya
mo
sa
graduate siya
11 and
siya
12.
sa junior high, mo graduate siya sa senior high.
Muna siyang completion
duha.
sa junior high.
Duha ka bu graduation ani, junior high ug senior high.
Completion na to ang kuha na, sir. Base sa kuha sa DepEd, completion ang sa grade 10 o niya graduation gyud sa 12.
Ako lang I just wanted to raise because under K to 12 policy, I think that there's only one graduation and that is graduation in the grade 12 if DepEd will confirm.
Pwede ang atong patubagon, ang ato ang
taga-DepEd
assistant
tingali.
district supervisor regarding into that sa graduation. Si Sir Danny Godilusao.
You have now the floor, Assistant Superintendent.
Good morning to the honorable members of the City Council and also the presiding. Insofar as graduation is concerned, we have our closing exercises for elementary, and that's grade 6. We have completion for junior high school ceremony for junior high school, and we have graduation for senior high school by 2018. So for this coming March, there will be no graduation because the grade 10 now will continue with grades 11 and 12. So the ceremony that we will be having with them and the certificate that they will be receiving is completion, junior high school, certificate of junior high school completion.
So dili graduation.
Not graduation
Not
for
graduation.
grade 10.
So duha gyapon ang graduation ani. Graduation for elementary and graduation para sa senior high.
Yes, sir.
Sa K-12.
Yes, sir.
K-12. Unya, kini at least based sa atong experience ba naam ko diri sa implementation nga ang pag-process sa release sa funds sa cash incentive, the DepEd will give it to the local school board at least 1 week before graduation.
Yes,
So
sir.
mahuman na diha kung kinsay honor student 1 week before graduation.
Yes, sir.
Ma-determine na ninyo.
Yes, sir.
Now,
Pero
kay 1 week raman ang lead time, do you think ma-release sa ang pundo ani kay target diri sa ordinansa nga mahatag yun nato ang cash incentive during the graduation? Do you think DepEd will have sufficient time to process?
As to the submission of the list of honor students per school, we can do that because there is a requirement that before the 1 week before graduation, there should already the school will already declare the honors as approved by the division office, and that we can submit immediately to the city government, to the school board. Our only problem is that on the transfer, on the processing of funds going to DepEd.
Because the local school board in the ordinance is in charge of processing the release of funds, but in reality, I sat before with the local school board, it is still DepEd who will process, make the necessary compliances, especially the documentation. At the end of the day, would 1 week be enough for you?
With our experience, sir, if there is already the fund will be transferred to us, we can immediately process. But if it is 1 week, including the submission and the transfer of funds, I think it would take 1 week is not enough.
1 week is not enough. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Just
Mr.
make,
Chair.
Thank you, Member.
Clarification,
Yes,
for
go ahead, Member Andales, please.
Just point of clarification. Now, you made mention a while ago that there is a certificate of completion in the junior high.
Yes, sir.
So, in other words, that is not graduation.
That's not graduation. It's
So, when you talk about graduation, it's the senior high.
senior high school, sir.
Senior
Correct,
high
sir.
school. I see. So, you want to clarify, because in the certificate of completion, there is no valedictorian, there is no salutatorian. Am I right?
But there we will declare top 10 students, and which is that the number one, the top 1 student will be equivalent to a valedictorian for that particular level.
Yeah, but the ordinance has mention of any certificate of accomplishment. It's only for graduation, elementary and senior high school.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
May we seek clarification from Member Dizon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, Mr. Chairman, maining ang mga punto nga gipagawas sa atong mga sakop sa konseho. Before i-deliberate na to ang maong ordinansa for final approval, Mr. Chairman, we will make the necessary revision. Pero ang essence, ang spirit sa ordinance nga hatagan na to og pasidungog ang mga exemplars in academic achievements, no? So, as to the title, ato lang ng usbon niya, we deliberate the proposed measure sa final approval.
Thank you, Member Dizon. Any more questions to the Assistant Superintendent? If there are no more questions, we can excuse him. Can we go back to Mr. Tumulak? If there are there also questions to Member or Mr. Tumulak? If there are none, we can also excuse him. So wala na. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tumulak. You are now excused.
Thank you, sir.
Any more some more speakers, Madam Secretary?
There are no more speakers, Mr. Chair.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the body?
Move to terminate.
There's a motion to terminate from Member Andales the proceedings, seconded by Member Osmeña. Discussion, objection. There being none, the motion is carried. Next item on the public hearing.
Our next item for a public hearing for today is the proposed ordinance of Member Alvin Dizon entitled, "An Ordinance Providing for Graduation Fees Subsidy to All Public Daycare Centers in the City of Cebu."
Do we have speakers, Madam Secretary?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have one speaker, Mr. Chair.
Before calling on the speaker, can we request Member Dizon to just give us an insight what this proposed measure is all about?
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Republic Act number 6972, also known as the Barangay Level Total Development and Protection of Children Act, mandates the establishment of daycare centers in every barangay. At the same time, local government is mandated by law to provide the necessary assistance that will promote and protect every child's right to education. I humbly believe, Mr. Chairman, that it is important to provide assistance to all students in all public daycare centers within the city of Cebu. Graduation ceremony is a very significant event in every pupil's life. Daycare is the first step.
Legal encumbrances. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion of Member Osmeña, seconded by Member Gabuya Jr. Discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Member Andales,
I just want
please.
to ask the Speaker. So in the 2016 budget, as proposed by the Executive Department, am I made to understand that they did not give a budget for amortization, loan amortization of the land bank?
It was zero.
It was zero.
It was zero.
Thank you.
More comment? Yes, Member Wenceslao?
Yes, Mr. Chair. On for the 2016. That's all,
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Wenceslao. Yes, Member
Yes,
Osmeña?
Member Wenceslao did raise that concern, but it was after already the 9 deliberations on the proposed 2016 budget. It had already been approved. Yes, the amendment could have been done, but again, as he mentioned, it was surmised, like he said, that a supplemental budget could be proposed for 2016 to cover the amortizations. Of course, he himself said that it was intentionally omitted on the premise that the 2015 supplemental budget 1 would be approved, the bulk of which, as I mentioned earlier, included the prepayment of the SRP loan. But again, may I emphasize, Mr. Chair, that this is the prepayment. It is not yet due. It is not an obligation. And besides, at that point, we were not made aware of what was the status of our application to prepay the loan. We were not informed if we were given already the option of paying it by all the stakeholders involved. Anyway, Mr. Chair, to come back to, that's all in the past. What we have to do is to act now. We have 10 days to act.
Anyway, I just want to make...
If the chair may say that the local finance committee did not include that in the 2016 budget on the assumption that the prepayment of 2.4 billion, which was included in the supplemental budget number 1 of 2015, will eventually be approved. I think that's the
Yes,
point
Mr.
of
Chair,
my-
and I agree with you that that is the, I am sure that is the reason. If I may just go back to the dates, the proposed 2016 annual budget was submitted to the SP on October 16, 2015. The SB1, of course, was proposed before that, and it was on September 30, about 2 weeks before the submission of the proposed 2016 annual budget, September 13, that we had held in abeyance the SB1 of 2015, so that they had time to know that this was not going to be approved. And in the 9 sessions that went on from November up to December, it never came up. It was already on the assumption that the SB1 was not approved. And therefore, but again, during the deliberations, that had not come up at all, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring
Thank
that
you,
up.
Member Osmeña.
Mr.
Member
Chair.
Andales,
I
please,
just
then
want
Member
to-
Cabrera, then Member Wenceslao.
Yeah, I just want to echo the statement of Honorable Wenceslao that the omission was deliberate, intentional, and willful. Therefore, I hope that the Executive Department should not blame the City Council for not acting on the loan amortization with the land bank.
Thank you, Member Andales, Member Cabrera, then Member Wenceslao.
I just wanted to ask the budget the Committee on Budget, Mr. Chair, if there are 2015 supplemental budget 1 that has been included in 2016 annual budget. No.
That ends with the year.
So no. What I'm asking.
Some of the items, yes.
Yes. So
Some of
there
the
are-
items, I'm sorry, I did not get your question
yes.
correctly. I did not understand it. Some of the yes, some.
So there are
like the garbage, which was an issue.
Yes.
Of course, it's included in the annual budget of 2016. And in fact, that particular issue of garbage was a part of that was even included. And what was numerically called SB2, di ba, we included 40 million there.
Yes, that's why I'm asking, because why other proposal in 2015 supplemental budget 1 was included in in the annual appropriations.
The bulk of the proposed SB1, I have to keep on saying proposed, Mr. Chair, because it was not approved, no? The proposed SB1 was, of course, the prepayment of the SRP loan amounting to around 2.4 billion pesos.
Thank you, Member Osmeña. Member Wenceslao.
Yes, Mr. Chair. As I said, Mr. Chair, I can only surmise that it was a deliberate intention of the LFC to omit the proposal for the amortization because they were expecting that the SB1 prepayment will be approved. So there is no need for the amortization. Mr. Chairman, I was able to remind Mayet, if I remember right, during last, I think 2 weeks ago, regarding the supplemental budget. And I think there is a need for, Mr. Chair, if I may, to have an executive meeting with the local finance committee. So we can, because according to Mayet, she said that she's still finding the sources of funds because it's still, there is no savings yet until now because the annual budget is still bago pa nahuman. So as far as realignment is concerned, I don't know if there are items in the prior years that can be realigned. As far as augmentation is concerned, I think as a role, Mr. Chair, we can augment only on the same expense class. And there is no expense item that is the same expense class for the amortization that is is not yet spent during the 2015. That's why they have problem in getting the sources of funds. The only source of funds that can easily be available is the sale of SRP, which I do believe that if it will be passed, the City Council will again disapprove it because of the case of the Luti.
Thank you, Member Wenceslao.
Thank you,
Mr.
Yes,
May I
Member
just
Osmeña.
correct?
Yes.
That is not the case of Delute. That is the case of Mr. Romulo Torres.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
We're
The
getting
case
our
of,
cases mixed up.
Torres.
No? If I may react, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Member Osmeña.
Yes, I understand Member Wenceslao's explanation. If I remember, about 2 years ago, for CCMC, we had realigned for a supplemental budget, 300 million from drainage. And then we aligned it, we approved it, and that was the only amount in drainage at that time. We realigned it for the construction of the new CCMC, only to find out later that the funds were used to pay the assistance to the senior citizens. So again, I go back. Where there is always a way if there is the will. And this is something that is really, absolutely, completely urgent and necessary. We have 10 days. The implications are not paying on time is not only with us as Cebu City, but with all the LGUs who are participants of the JICA loan under the ODA program. That was made very clear to me. So again, I ask my fellow councilors here to please join us in requesting the executive department to submit a supplemental budget immediately just to pay off this amortization, even if only the February amortization. That's only 188 million pesos. We can deal with the August later on.
Thank you, Member Osmeña. Member Abella.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask the chair. Well, I have heard I have read in the newspaper, Mr. Chairman, that there is a mandamus that is filed. What is the effect of that mandamus, considering that we are now on the 2016, and supposedly, from what I've read, supposed to be a mandamus calling the attention of the other members of this August body to act on the supplemental budget number 1, because if the supplemental budget number 1 will be approved, then there is a provision there for the prepayment of the SRP loan.
May I again? I'm not a lawyer, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
yes.
So I do not know what mandamus. All I know is that we have to wait for the court to decide. In the meantime, February 20 is coming up. We have 10 days. Will the court decide in 10 days? And the supplemental budget 1 is for 2015. We are already in 2016. And again, the supplemental budget 1 is for the prepayment of the loan, which is really not, as of this time, as I mentioned, is desirable, but it is not obligatory at this point.
Member
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just last note, Mr. Chair. Yes, I understand with Member Osmeña, Mr. Chair, that there is really a need to have a supplemental budget in order for us to pay our amortization this coming February 20. There is really a need. However, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask this question. If the executive department, the LFC, cannot find a source of fund for the supplemental budget, except for the proceeds of the SRP loan, what will happen?
Mr. Chair, just
Member Gabuya Jr., please.
yeah, on the apprehension earlier of Member Wenceslao that savings can only be used for augmentation, I think it's not correct, because under Administrative Order number 47, the all savings, if declared savings, can be used for any other purpose. It can even be considered as sources of annual budget or any supplemental budget, Mr. Chair. Just for the information.
Thank you, Member
Mr.
Gabuya
Chair.
Jr.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Mr.
let's hear
Chair.
from Member Carrillo, then Member Hapson.
Mr. Chair, I agree with Member Osmeña that there's a need for us to appropriate. But I think it's very early for us to speculate what is the source of funds from the local finance committee. Let the local finance committee submit the source of funds, and we will discuss it later. What is their source of funds? I think it is very premature for us to speculate the source of funds.
I was only suggesting, if you would have listened, I was only
Yes,
suggesting and recommending
yes.
and not telling them what to do.
Yes, probably we'll just urge them, and we will discuss later the source of funds. Right now, I think it's a waste of time for us to argue on the source of funds. We will await for the local finance committee to submit the same, and we will debate later on whether that source of funds can be legally attainable or not. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, Member Carrillo. Member Andales.
Just a
Mr.
point
Chair.
of clarification. We will not discuss Mandamo's case because it's still pending before the court. We don't want to get to the merits and the demerits of the case. stay that as is, we just tackle on the request of Honorable Osmeña, requesting the local finance committee to submit within the August body, within the 10-day period, for loan amortization. Of course, requesting, asking that the source of funds should not be the sale of SRP.
Thank you,
Mr.
Member
Chair.
Angeles. Member
Chair.
De Los Santos.
Let's just all be mindful that we have a timeline here. So I think that's 10 days, if I'm not mistaken. So please, let's also be mindful that let us not put to risk Cebu City government. Thank you, Mr.
To
Chair.
Member De Los Santos, Member Hapson.
Thank you, Mr.
You
Chair.
raise your hand.
Yes, Mr. Earlier, Mr. Chair. But I would like to agree with Member Osmeña, Mr. Chair, the urgency of this supplemental budget. As I remember, Mr. Chair, late last year, 2015, the executive submitted supplemental budget number 2 for the additional cash incentives, additional cash bonus for the employees. Why not submit supplemental budget number 1 for this purpose, Mr. Chair? And I agree with the teacher that maybe this is, for me, this is very urgent and necessary, Mr. Chair.
So any more questions? Let's have this, there's a pending motion to be resolved. And if I may just answer the query of Member Abella without going into the merits of the Mandamos case, I think there is a school of thought that considering that the Mandamos case refers to a supplemental budget of 15, and that maybe the executive has the, or entertains the thought that it could perhaps jeopardize or affect the pending, the submission of the supplemental or the payment of the interest would affect the Mandamos. That could perhaps be the reason, since you asked that question. But let us not go into the merits of the Mandamos case because it's a pending case in court. So that there is a pending motion, seconded.
I hear the motion now. of,
Member Osmeña, please reiterate the motion.
I therefore move to request the Executive Department to submit a supplemental budget immediately to pay this year's SRP loan amortizations using funds which are free from any legal encumbrances. So I move, Mr. Chair.
Considering that the payment would become due on what date?
On February 20, I'm sorry, Mr.
February
Chair.
20. There's a pending motion of Member Osmeña.
Second.
Seconded by Member Hapson. Discussion, objection. There being none, the motion is carried.
Further, Mr. Chair, I move that this privileged speech be noted.
There's a motion to note, seconded by Member Gabuya Jr. Discussion, objection. There being none, the motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Corollary
Member
motion,
Osmeña.
Mr. Chair.
Corollary motion from
Yeah.
Member Cabrera.
Requesting the local finance committee and the committee on budget to have a meeting, Mr. Chair, to tackle on this issue, Mr. Chair.
When, Member comes
Immediately, Mr. Chair.
How immediate is immediate?
Maybe tomorrow or this afternoon, Mr. Chair.
We can have perhaps tomorrow, so that I still have to sign the resolution.
Thank you, Mr.
Tomorrow,
Chair.
what time?
In the morning, Mr. Chair.
In the morning, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Thank you, Member Cabrera. Next. Oh, yes, Member Zafra. Then Member Archival, after Member Zafra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Famous Italian artist Leonardo da Vinci once said, and I quote, "It had long since come to my attention that people of accomplishment rarely sat back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things," end quote. Mr. Chairman, colleagues in this august body, people in the gallery, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. When Vice Mayor Edgardo Colina Labella assumed the office of the mayor by operation of law 60 days ago, all eyes were at him. Questions have surfaced such as, what kind of a mayor would he be? How is he going to discharge his function as caretaker of the city for 60 days? Is he ready for the job? Ladies and gentlemen, we in the Association of Barangay Councils believed that he is not just capable, but is equally reliable as well to act as a caretaker of our city. True to his traits as servant of the people, then as Ombudsman Director, and as our Vice Mayor, we see in him the same Edgardo Labella, faithful to his sworn duty, a silent, humble, but an accomplished leader who always assumed his role full with passion, determination, and dedication, but his feet being always on the ground. He had performed tasks, did his duties, and took his responsibilities by heart, and always upholding the rule of law. The litmus test of his leadership was clearly manifested on how he handled and managed the situation on the aftermath of the fire incident in Sitio Avocado, Barangay Lahug, with reasonableness and right conduct, such that the greatest good of the greatest number were always at the fore, but at the same time, there remain ample opportunity for individual freedom and self-expression for both contending parties. Likewise, he had effectively and efficiently led this city, working together with the barangays, seeing to it that barangay concerns and priorities were attended to. Although the success of two recent big events in the city, the Sinulog 2016 and the 51st International Eucharistic Congress, is a product of the collective efforts of all Cebuanos alike, his active participation and involvement in its planning and execution, particularly on security, coordination, and support, among others, is indeed noticeable. It is in this regard that we have shown to the whole world that we are capable and always ready to host an international gathering and international exposure that placed this city in the international spotlight once more. Moreover, he had issued 4 executive orders and signed and approved 3 ordinances. 60 days may be short, but he had accomplished a lot. Thus, in behalf of the 80 strong and empowered barangays of the city of Cebu, I would like to express our most profound congratulations and commendation to Vice Mayor Edgardo Colina Labella for having led the city remarkably well during his stint as our acting mayor. Sir, welcome back. Our hats off for you. Move to note, Mr. Chair.
What can I say? Thank you for the kind words. I'm speechless, but I am humbled. Thank you. It is a motion to note. Seconded. Discussion. Objection.
Discussion, Mr. Chair.
Discussion, Member Andanes.
I have nothing against my compare being the acting mayor of Cebu City, but I'm just concerned. This is a factual issue wherein Honorable Acting Mayor Edgar Labella issued a sign, an increase of gasoline allowance for this representation, but yet the administrator would decrease. I mean, who is really the mayor? Is it the city administrator? I have requested 2 from Honorable Acting Mayor Edgar Labella. He signed, approved the same. But why is it that it has to go through with the office of the city administrator? I mean, who is the mayor now?
Well, I will look into that. I was not able to follow that up from my point. Thank you, Member Andales, for reminding me. Thank you. Member Archival, you are now recognized for the third privilege speech. Member Archival, you are recognized, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chair, I rise on the matter of personal and collective privilege and formally speak on behalf of the thousands of informal settlers of Cebu City who are now facing imminent demolition. I am sure that every member has already been notified about the veto of the Executive Department through the then acting Mayor Edgardo Labella of City Ordinance number 2448, or an ordinance imposing a moratorium on evictions or demolitions of dwellings in public lands for a period of 1 year. It can be recalled that the very same ordinance was also vetoed by the Executive Department through Mayor Michael L. Rama. City Ordinance number 2448 is not only a plain and simple restraint for the city government to stop for a certain period of time to evict or demolish dwellings in public lands, but rather City Ordinance 2448 supplants to the apparent failure of the city government to comply the provisions of Republic Act 7279, or an act to provide for a comprehensive and continuing urban development and housing program, establish the mechanism for the implementation and for other purposes, otherwise known as the Urban Development and Housing Act, or ODHA, of 1992. Section 15 of Republic Act number 7279 states, in part, that socialized housing as defined in Section 3 hereof shall be primary strategy in providing shelter for the underprivileged and homeless. As can be gleaned, the objectives of the City Ordinance number 2448 as provided in Section 3 thereof are: 1. Give the city government ample time and opportunity to identify, secure, acquire, and prepare adequate relocation site for informal settlers who are identified to be affected by impending evictions or demolitions in compliance with the provisions of Republic Act number 7279. Number 2, emphasize and reiterate that evictions, demolitions, clearing operations, and similar activities by the city government, when undertaken for whatsoever purpose, must comply with the provisions of paragraph 2, subparagraphs 1 to 8, section 28 of 7279, particularly the requirement of adequate relocation sites for affected individuals and families. Because, to cite examples, the fire victims of Sitio Palma, Riverside of Barangay San Roque, who were displaced by a fire last 2014, still living in tents in Sitio Palma, and a number of families who are victims of fire last 2014 in Warwick Barracks are still not relocated until present. In addition, instances granted under paragraph 1 of section 8 of Republic Act 7279 shall also be subjected to the moratorium solely for purposes of affording the city government enough time to prepare corresponding relocation sites for affected individual in these areas. Further, Section 3.5 of the City Ordinance Number 2448 directs the city government the moratorium for A. Construct a medium-rise buildings in Lorega's socialized housing site and for purchase at least 3 lots to serve as resettlement sites. City Ordinance Number 2448, with its wisdom and objective, can be viewed as an ordinance providing socialized housing for underprivileged and homeless residents of Cebu City. To the misfortune of the underprivileged and homeless, and as someone aptly put it, as the executive department fails to see the forest for a tree. To the distinguished members of the August Body, now is our time and privilege to override the misinterpretation of the executive department and join my stand in extending our sincerest apologies because the city government fails to protect the interests of the underprivileged and homeless. In view of the foregoing, Mr. Chairman, I move that my privileged speech would be noted.
Thank you, Member Archival. There's a motion to note, seconded by Member Gabuya Jr. Discussion, objection. Yes, Member
Discussion.
Angeles.
The Speaker made mention about Palma Street and in Ermita, barracks, okay, wherein there was a huge fire that occurred. But I'm just wondering, the policy of the administration of the mayor is that, and I quote, fire is not a reason for them not to go back to the area where the fire occurred. In barracks, Mr. Chair, almost 2 years, they have not gone to the area. They have not rebuilt their houses. They have been residing there for 60 years, 50 years. But why is it that the policy of the mayor said, ang sunog dili rason, nga dili makabalik. Pero wag sila makabalik for almost 2 years now. The same is true in Palma, in San Roque. What they care only is that side along the river side of the river bank. They improved that, but the houses they are occupying still, made of tent, and if there is a rain, they get wet, and some of them died. I mean, 6 already died. I mean, what kind of policy do we have? We are only good in propaganda. So that's my only observation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Angeles. Member Wenceslao.
Discussion, Mr. Chair.
Discussion, yeah. Member Cabrera.
Yeah, another discussion, Mr. Chair.
Member Cabrera.
Since we opened this topic, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to inform the body that the subject area in Palma, Mr. Chair, is subject for international human rights validations for the women and children who are placed on that area, Mr. Chair. It's almost 2 years now on the plight of the children and women, Mr. Chair. Review is ongoing. I hope the city and the executive body can come up with a solution with this, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Cabrera. Any more
Mr.
discussion? Yes,
Chairman.
Member Wenceslao.
Mr. Chair.
If I may, as far as the problem in the Palma is concerned, because I was there a month ago, and I really was very sad in knowing that until now they are still there. And I asked our DWOP chief what really happened to these fire victims in Palma, and he said the problem now, because the plan of the city is to build a medium-rise condominium there, but in the 2016 budget, the appropriations for the condominium 100 million was not approved. That's why we really had some problem, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Member Wenceslao. Member Gabuya
Chair.
Jr.
Just for-
Member Gabuya, then
Just-
Member Osmeña.
Just an addition information, Mr. Chairman, that there are those also affected families living in landfill that was also displaced and until now have not given relocation site, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Member Gabuya. Member Osmeña.
Mr. Chair, going back to the situation in Barangay San Roque in Sitio Palma, Attorney Colleen Rosell has been giving different reasons every time why the situation is still the way it is. We have had, if I remember correctly, at least 2 executive sessions where the affected residents were there, and so was he, at least one time, because he doesn't always show up. And he even promised them that he would see them the next day, because there were different issues like, there are 120 families, but only 60 were given. And so, up to now, they're still there. And for him to say that it is because we did not approve the condominium that he had proposed or that was being proposed in the budget is, again, just another reason. For 2 years, just because in 2016, as he claims it was not approved, that is his excuse for not being able to at least give these people a better life. 6 people have actually died because of their exposure to the elements.
Thank you, Member Osmeña. Any more discussion? So there's a motion of Member Archibald moving to note. Any more discussion? There being none, the motion is carried.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Member.
as the principal author of this ordinance, Mr. Chairman, may I now move to override
Member Dizon,
the proposed measure.
the chair may say, there is in the agenda the veto letter, and we will come into that when that item now.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of that, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, pero mahimo ba nga, since ato naman
Ah,
ni
okay.
gituki ron,
Okay. So there's a motion. Kindly
ato na
register
lang
the
ni
motion, Member
Desairan once
Dizon.
and for all.
Yes, okay. Go ahead, Member Dizon.
Before that,
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say something. No?
Go ahead, Member Dizon.
I have already said my piece, why it is imperative for this measure to pass. I have fully explained its spirit and wisdom, but despite its lofty objectives, the city's political leadership continuously watered it down. There is nothing more to be said, Mr. Chairman. The fate of this social justice legislation is now in our hands. So I fervently hope and pray that each member of this Sanggunian will cross party lines and will choose to be on the right side of history. So may I now therefore move to override the veto of the acting mayor, Edgar Labella. And at this point, may I ask Councilor Dave Tumulak if he's coming back, Mr. Chairman, so he can also participate in the
Where is Member
deliberation.
Tumulak?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
just only a suggestion, Mr. Chairman. Since Member Tumolak is not yet arrived, if possible, Mr. Chairman, we will wait Member Tumolak and then we will have a recess as this
Okay,
moment.
there's a
Mr.
motion to
Chairman.
recess, for recess, to wait for Member. Mr. Cabantan, please look for Member Tumulak. Arrest.
of the override.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chair.
Member Osmeña.
Gain out from this ordinance. Browsing, however, in the approved ordinance that is now being presented,
This, ang akong nabantayan din I'm the chairman of the Committee on Housing in 2004, I think. And during the time, there were demolitions. But before demolitions, I can clearly understand from Tommy Osmeña that, look, prepare them. And one very good example is the demolition in Kalubihan, in Bakayan, and release Mabolo. Before demolition, we prepare the land with an organization named Gawad Kalinga, and then ask the people to have an equity, they have their equity as their sweet equity, then they're building their house, and then it's very successful. So naa ang mga tao, nalipay ang mga tao, everything is okay. But nga no mangyud natong pugson, 1 year man ni. Probably, mingon dayon ta nga, build karon sila diha, ato nang tangtangon dayon. But to those people nga naa diha karon, unya tangtangon nato, unyang wa tay mabutangan, illegal ta because ingon ng balaod, nga ato silang tagaan. And we need, one year man ni, 365 days.
Sa on tanig sulbad problema ha. No, 1 year na, dili na siya sakit, Mr. Chairman. No, na ako'y nakaistorya, Mr. Chairman, dito sa Mahiga, perting luoya. Iko, gidimoli sila month of December. Ako siyang gikaistorya, ingon siya dito, balik mi dong, wa mi kibaw asami. Akong mga anak, undang tanan eskwela, akong banan na, undang sa panginabuhian, kay nagsigpangita, asami mupuyo, Mr. Chairman ba. So more or less, Mr. Chairman, para nako, pabor ko pag-override sa bito, Mr. Chairman, considering harmless ni Mr. Chairman. Di po di makadaot sa syudad sa Sugbo, Mr. Chairman. That's all.
Thank you, Member Arcilla. So let's have the voting now. Madam Secretary, did you monitor? Did you count the votes?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Kindly
I have here
announce
the
the
result.
voting.
There are 11 who are in favor, Mr. Chair. 1 is against, and there are 4 abstentions, Mr. Chair.
So the two-thirds vote has not been met. So the chair has to declare that the motion to override.
How many is the two-thirds, Mr. Chair?
It's 12.
12.
So let's proceed. Can we have a
Mr. Chairman,
recess?
2 minutes recess, Mr.
corollary
Chair.
motion, Mr. Chairman.
Corollary motion first before the recess.
In light of the decision of the City Council on this proposed measure, Mr. Chairman, I move that, may I humbly move that I will relinquish my chairmanship of the Committee on Housing, Mr. Chairman, because I feel that I let the urban poor down, and also in solidarity with the plight of the urban poor sector, Mr. Chairman. And I went beyond party lines just to refile this ordinance. So I feel that I'm no longer effective in carrying out my task as a chairperson of the Committee on Housing. So I move that I'm going to relinquish my chairmanship, Mr. Chairman, and let the Vice Chair, Nida Cabrera, to assume the position as Chair of the Committee on Housing.
There's a motion of Member Dizon, seconded. There is no second. Seconded by Member Abelia. Discussion. Objection.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Discussion.
Member. Discussion, yes.
Honorable Alvin, we do believe no sa imuhang kakugi kabahin sa paglaban sa ato ang mga kaigsuon. Dili na kino siguro kinahanglan nga mo relinquish ka sa imuhang chairmanship. Wa ni siya magpasabot, no? Daghan kay ta og mga lessons learned. Sama sa gingon sa ni Councilor Lee Hapson, naglibog siya, o si Councilor Margot naglibog sad siya. Well, we go directly to the point. Revisit the guidelines, the policies, and procuring lot. That's one. Usa na sa ato abang tan-awon pud ba? Ikaduha, kita tanan din bisan sa mata sa mga tao. O ang ato yung dughan o atong kasing-kasing gyud tinud-anay gyud. Atong i-set aside ang political color. Ma-resolve man siguro ni nato no? Nga kita mag-usa kay bisan pag unsaon pa labi na karon nagduol ng eleksyon dili gid nato na mahikawan ang mga tao nga masagulan og pamulitika. Mas maayo siguro mag-istoryahan na ita, kita-kita lang siguro gawas diri sa ato session hall and mag-istoryahan na ita kinasing-kasing ba. Ang ako lang, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Di na kinahanglan. Excuse me, Honorable Osmeña. Let me finish. Ang ako lang, Mr. Chair, di na siguro kinahanglan si Councilor Alwin, no? Kay angayan masagot sa siya diha. No? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Member Osmeña.
Thank you. First, I would like to make a correction. Wala gyud ko maglibog nimo.
Thank you,
Member,
Councilor.
I just, for the very same reasons as I said that you abstained, it is the very same reasons that I am agreeable to the override. Also, I would like to give respect to the decision of Member Dizon, inasmuch as there is going to be a loss. Even me personally, I feel, as far as the committee is concerned, it is his decision. We have seen, we have witnessed, we have heard him argue, bring out what he truly believes in as far as this ordinance is concerned. Now to speak about or to discuss even, let's talk about this. We've talked about this. He has given us enough time to talk about this, to discuss this, and to bring out any questions, any amendments, any objections. This is the second time that this ordinance was presented to this council. So there has been enough time. So, inasmuch also as has been used today many times with a heavy heart, I will respect the decision of Member Dizon.
Thank you, Member Osmeña.
Mr. Chair.
Member Cabrera.
Yeah, as the Vice Chair of the Committee on Housing, Mr. Chair, I decline also to accept the nomination of
Maybe Member Dizon.
Member Dizon.
Yes. There is a proper time for that. We might just hold in abeyance that decision of yours. We can just perhaps defer consideration and maybe think it over again. We sympathize with you because I know that you have the noblest of intentions, but it's also a loss for you to be not in the committee on. There should be nothing personal here. It's our own perception on certain issues. So I think for as long as our conscience is clear, I think, and you really deserve to be there, so that if the chair may request you to reconsider your decision and maybe think it over again, and there will be a time for that, Member Dizon.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I already made up my mind, Mr. Chairman.
So there's a motion of Member Dizon, seconded, discussion, objection. Is there any
Mr.
objection?
Chair,
Yes,
just
Member
a
Dilusan.
discussion.
Yes, discussion,
I
Member
would
Dilusan.
like to personally ask Member Dizon to reconsider his decision and take this as just a hiccup. And for you to be at the helm, continue, please, to pursue the dreams of the less privileged and the marginalized. I mean, you have done a great job. Everybody saw that. And again, as I said, just take this as a hiccup and rest assured, even if we were not able to pass this ordinance, we will be 101% rallying behind the poor people and the marginalized. But please take the helm and reconsider your decision. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member.
Again, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I already made up my mind, Mr. Chairman, and just for the record, Mr. Chairman, this is not the only ordinance that this humble representation passed and was approved by the City Council nga wala gi-implementar sa Executive Department. I can name at least 5 housing-related ordinances, Mr. Chairman, nga gipasar ni ining maong konseho, pero wala gi-implementar sa Executive Department, Mr. Chairman. So, I'm very sorry, Mr. Chairman. I feel that I let the urban poor down with this development, Mr. Chairman, and I can assure you, Mr. Chairman, my dear colleagues, that I will continue to legislate measures aimed at promoting housing rights. Dili mo undang akong trabaho, Mr. Chairman, I just feel nga dili nako effective as chairman of the Committee on Housing, but it does not prevent me from exercising my mandate as a member of the City Council, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Member Dizon. So, is there any objection to the motion of Member Dizon?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I
Member.
am objecting to replace Honorable Alvin Dizon.
There is
I am
an objection.
declining,
So, in
to
as much
accept the
as there is an
chairmanship.
objection, is there any motion to really address on the issue of the objection? Divide the House? Okay, let's divide the House. As many...
I think
Mr. Chair, I
there
think
is
out of-
the issue is not quite clear. Now,
There's a
Honorable
motion
Dizon
of Member Dizon
voluntarily
that-
relinquished the chairmanship. What Honorable Cabrera wants to object is that she will not assume. That's different.
But about the motion of Member Dizon for him to relinquish, I think that's the meat of the gist of
No.
the objection.
I think.
Yeah, let's
Honorable
let's
Cabrera
hear
will
it
not
out from Member
object.
Cabrera.
Mr. Chair, my motion, Mr. Chair, is to decline the
Decline. It's
decline
different.
to accept the
Not on the
chairmanship,
resignation.
no? The
Not-
chairmanship
So
of
on the
Committee on
resignation,
Housing.
is there any objection on the resignation of Member Dizon?
Miss,
There's an objection from Member Tumulak. So there, in as much as there is an objection, let's divide the House.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Member
if I
Quinto.
may say, this
Mr.
is
Chair.
very divisive, no, because we have already voted twice. I mean, we have undergone voting for 2 consecutive issues. So I think this is a personal matter as far as Member Dizon is concerned, and it should not, again, divide this House.
So can we have a recess?
Yes.